keep him on for Cheshvan. The Hilula of Rabbi Yitzhak Algazi. Now the Algazi family was a famous, let's say, rabbinic family in of itself of its specific period of time. Once again, he was also from, I believe, from Turkey. The great rabbi was. He was born in the year 1625. He passed away in 1683. He was a great rabbi, I think. So naturally, 15th of Cheshvan, the Tetzvav Cheshvan, will mark the great rabbi's Hilula. So it's actually interesting. His father was also, I think, a famous rabbi, Rabbi Avram Algazi, and he was born in Izmir in Turkey, and his mother's name, I believe, so I'm not sure what his mother's name was in himself. Now, he would learn Torah under great rabbis. Now, remember we've spoken about the Benevisti rabbinic family in of itself on various occasions before. So he would learn Torah under auspices of Rabbi Chaim ben Rabbi Yisrael Benevisti, who was a rabbi of Izmir, of Turkey, at that point in time. Now, it's interestingly, afterwards, he was learning over there. He would move to the island, I think, at this specific island of Shis or Kio, as it says. I think it's quite near the border of Turkey. And he would work as a rabbi of the congregation over there, of the Jewish congregation of that specific island in of itself. And then eventually, he will actually return to Izmir and become one of the great Chachamim over there, one of the great rabbis over there respectively, and he would work as a rabbi of a main congregation in Izmir for, I believe, 10 years, a staggering amount of time. That's interesting. So he passed away, I think, on the 15th of Cheshvan. We're talking about 1683, so that's nearly about 450 years ago, a long time ago in of itself. A very, very long time ago. We're talking about 350 years ago, approximately, and he was buried in Izmir, respectively. Also, what's interesting, he would have the famous book, the Shult Algazi, Shelot Teshuvot, question and answers book, Algazi. It's actually interesting. It would actually come out, I believe, in way later on, just in recent times, in 1982, and it would be Rabbi Masud ben Shimon would actually print the book. Now, we've spoken about the Ben Shimon rabbinic dynasty on various occasions where there was many great rabbis of that specific place itself, or the Ben Shimon family itself. He would print it. I'd assume it would be printed in Israel. So that's very, very interesting. So he lived at a time period where he was close to, say, many great rabbis that lived in that specific vicinity. And Ibn Chaim, who was author of the Korban Korban, his grandfather, Aaron Ibn Chaim, was the Korban Korban. His grandfather, Aaron Ibn Chaim, was, I think, from the side of his mother, was Rabbi Eliezer ben Archa. It's a very, very decorative, let's just say, family itself. And he was working as a Dayan in Hebron. He was, I think, for a period of time. And later on, he would obviously, eventually, he would move to Turkey. I think he was close, writing with various great Turkish rabbis and Egyptian rabbis, especially not just Rabbi Yitzhak Algazi, who we just mentioned about over here, also Rabbi Mordechai Halevi, the author of Darkei Noam, or known as Darkei Noam, also Rabbi Shmuel Pinto, Rabbi Shlomo Halevi, who was a Lev Shlomo, also known as. And he would actually, Rabbi Aaron Ibn Chaim would work as a Dayan in Turkey towards the end of his life, and head of Jewish court in Izmir, and one of the most outstanding men, let's just say, of its time. We've spoken about before. I think he would actually lose his life during an earthquake that happened in Turkey, I think in 1688. So that's something. And he was the author of the Teshuvot Skin, the Kuntra Shmot Gitin, and various other works. I'm just looking at his actually his signature at the moment. I think it's available on, and it was part of the Ottoman Empire where he was living. Now, there was another famous rabbi he was close to, was someone named Rabbi Chaim Benevisti. Very interesting enough. So who was Rabbi Chaim Benevisti? We spoke about him in a previous video. He was actually born in the year 1603. He passed away, I think, in 1673, respectively. He was a rabbi, he was a posek in Izmir, and the author of the Knesset Gedola, the Baal Knesset Gedola, which was actually put into 4 different sections of Arbaturim, as they say in of itself. Let's explore a bit with regards to Rabbi Chaim Benevisti, who Rabbi Algazi was close to. Obviously, he was born in Istanbul and was part of the Ottoman Empire at that point in time. Rabbi Chaim Benevisti's father was Rabbi Israel Benevisti, and his son was Rabbi Moshe Benevisti. And I think he was a brother, if I'm not mistaken, of Rabbi Yoshua Raphael Benevisti, and he would learn under auspices of Rabbi Yosef Materni. I think was young. I think would become the chief rabbi of Turkey, and he also learned under another great rabbi, the Mahari Samika, also, and Rabbi Tzimach Neruvoni, I think, for example. I think we mentioned various different of his ways he paskined in the Hakaot of Rabbi Shmuel ben, I think his name was Viliasid, if I'm not mistaken. He was a rabbi, he was a expert also, let's just say himself. Also known, Rabbi Chaim ben Abissi was known as, I think it's Marit, and he was very, very close to the great rabbis at that point in time. I think he was author also of Sefer Mitzvot Gadol, and had a connection with the Smag, Rabbi Moshe Makotzi, if I'm not mistaken. And when he was only 21 years of age, he would actually write the book called the Dinei de Chaye, which was on the Smag, respectively. And he'll be appointed as a rabbi, I think, in various places, Rabbi Ben Abishli, I think, including in Tira, if I'm not mistaken, and then afterwards in Izmir. Everyone that's tuning in actually to this live video at the moment, I'm just recording this from a bus at the moment. So friends, please subscribe to the channel. We're nearing 8,000 subscribers, which is a phenomenal achievement. So please, we'll really, really appreciate it. Okay. So he'd work as a Dayan in Izmir and a Rosh Yeshiva over there. And then after his rabbi passed away, I think he would take a position after Rabbi, I think Yosef Iskapa, if I'm not mistaken, and would take on his position afterwards. And he became very, very famous, let's just say, in Turkey in that specific point in time. So very, very interesting. And remember, we spoke about a series, probably about 100, as many as 100 rabbis that actually came from Turkey. I think he was it says over here, Rabbi Chaim Hatmana LeRabba Posek B'Dinei Isu V'Heter. He was, within regards to realms of Isu V'Heter, he was known as the main Posek over there. Ilud Tzavkita Rabba Sheni Hitmana Rabbi Aaron LePapa. I'm speaking about Rabbi Aaron LePapa on various occasions. Well, Afal Pi Rabbi Chaim Ben Mercy Heskim Kiviyachol LeParsha Lefsh. לא נקראו בחיי היום. יום בשדים הכבידה ליצנאית היטב. I think also the famous Chidah, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulay, would actually bring him back in his book about Rabbi Chaim in the Knesset Agdola, bring him down on various occasions before. That's something also that we have to point out. He lived also at the time period of the Shabtai Tzvi. That's something also we've got to point out about the rabbi also. So I think he very much contested against it. So let's explore a few more highlights with regards to rabbi. Friends, we are speaking about a famous Turkish rabbi of the name Rabbi Yitzhak Algazi here in today's special edition. We're exploring who was he close to and so on and so forth. Now let's explore a few of the highlights from the great rabbi's book. So he had a book, as we mentioned before, that I think which was printed way after he passed away in 1982. The book was called The Shelot Shavot Rabbeinu Yitzhak Algazi, respectively. Now this was printed, as we said before, in Jerusalem under Or HaMizrach, if I'm not mistaken, over there. So that's something to, and through Rabbi Ben Shimon. So one of the teachings says, Mashiv Sha'zo Mishrato Bo'ones Kodem Al Achirim Lekabalat HaMashara. So a very, very interesting teaching over there. So it gives an example with regards to a teacher of Chevrat Talmud Torah, Zestrim Shana V'yoter, ומחמת דוחקו שהיה עוני מאוד ולא היה יכול להתפרנס בעירו, עקר דירתו מן העיר ללכת למקום אחר שהיו לו קרובים עשירים באותו העיר והתמרו עליו, ואנשי ימינו את שמעון במקומו בחברת תלמוד תורה, ואני ראובן לא הלך למחוז חפצו מבני אונס וחזר למקומו, מצא את שמעון במקומו. So it goes on specific teaching of his, this specific teaching. So another teaching he gives of Rabbi Yitzhak Algazi. I think this actually comes from page Reish Mem Dalet, if I'm not mistaken. Once again, printed in 1902. מלמד שדוחק הסיפור הביא ליתר המוגמגים על הקמח בפסח. It's another important teaching over here. And another teaching that he gives, I think this one actually comes from, I'm not too sure the exact page, but once again from the שאלות תשובות. מלמד דין המוסר חברו לעקום שחייב לשלם לו כל הפסדו. This is another one of his famous teachings that we have to point out. Now, our last teaching from his book, again the famous book of the שאלות תשובות, I think this actually comes from עמוד ריש כ', if I'm not mistaken. מביא הסכמה לבצור מי שהתורתו אומנותו מעשי הקהילה. This is what is actually brought down over here. I think he gives a whole, we'll try and state what he actually says as an example of that. He says, מדי עברי ללכת לארץ הצבי, נקראתי קוד קיאן ושמעתי על תלמיד חכם בתוכה תורתו אומנותו. So he goes on, I think I'm using the Haimi website over here as a resource with regards to some of the tidbits here which was on this video over here about he was a great rabbi. He was civil in 1683. Now, the Algazi family was a famous rabbinic dynasty in all over the world, I think, at that point in time. So I'm not sure how he was connected to the other Algazis. That's something very, very interesting. And it's actually quoted on the preface of his book, Rabbi Yitzhak Algazi Zecher Tzadik Libracha, Shelot Shuvot, Rashi Rabbanei Ki'ot. So he's mentioning the island in İzmir where he was a rabbi of, and he quotes on the preface of the book, Rabbeinu Chaim ben Avisti Zecher Tzadik Libracha, Ba'al Knesset Agdola. We'll actually say it over there. And it quotes on the preface of the book that was printed through Rabbi Masud ben Shimon, a famous rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before over here in the series. So that's something that we have to point out. And yeah, very, very interesting. Happens to be his Hilula. Also, this week, the Haimi website will mark the Hilula of Rabbi Moshe Chaim Matzliach, we just spoke about, here on the 14th of Cheshvan. He passed away in 1845. We mentioned before, he was another great rabbi in İzmir, in Turkey, in his time, and was very close to the great rabbis of the city. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Matzliach he passed away, according to various opinions, maybe it was on Gimel Elul, but the Haimi website would actually list him as he passed away, I think, on the Yud Dalet Cheshvan, because I think that's what the date when Haskamot was given to some of his Sepharim respectively over there. So we also spoke today in a previous video about Rabbi Yeshua Shlomo Ardit, because of the previous video connected to Rabbi Matzliach. Rabbi Ardit lived between 1789 to 1876, and I think he passed away Erev Chag HaShavuot, if you can recollect. That's something interesting. We spoke about various other rabbis also. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Matzliach, also just to point out, was very close to Rabbi Yitzhak Algazi, and it was just another very great rabbi of his time. And also, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think this week also we spoke about another famous rabbi, Rabbi Shmuel Modi'ina. If you can recollect, he passed away in 1781, once again in Thessaloniki, and was the author of the Rosh Mashbir. Just to point out, he was 78 years of age when he passed away. Very much part of the Ottoman Empire when he was there, and Rabbi Yosef Shmuel Modiano was working, I think, really in Kirov. He was doing a lot of outreach at Kamar Torah, Bekihilat Italia Yeshan. He was working in the old Italy in of itself, that specific place in of itself, and I think he was very close to Rabbi Shmuel Yitzhak Modigliano, who actually happens to be his Hilula today. So let's see something about Rabbi Shmuel Yitzhak Modigliano. He was also another famous rabbi of his time. He was born in 1656, passed away in 1703. So I think it's his Hilula. I think this week also here in the middle, earlier part of the Cheshvan, he was a rabbi, he was a posek, he was a darshan, and one of the great rabbis, let's just say, of Thessaloniki in his time. And he was from the famous rabbinic dynasty in of itself, Talmud Chacham Posek Halacha. It's interesting. Rabbi Shmuel Yitzhak would learn under auspices of Rav Eliyahu Kobo, and would work as a dayan over there in the generation, and he would, as we said before, be working as a Marbitz Torah in the Kihilat Itali Yashan, and would be the Rosh Yeshiva inside the city of Rav Shmuel Polonetran, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, and I think he'd become the rabbi of the city of Thessaloniki. I think at that point in time, Rabbi Aaron Perchia, he would actually be very, very close to also another rabbi we've spoken about here on various occasions before. And he himself, Rabbi Modilina, I'm not sure when, there's varying opinions. And he was actually, I think, buried right next to Rabbi Eliyahu Kobo in the old Jewish cemetery in Thessaloniki, respectively. Now, just to point out one more thing with regards to Rabbi Modilano, he was the author of great books, including the Orchat Tamid, the Divrei Shmuel, the Ne'eman Shmuel also, and Rananat Mizmor. So very, very interesting. Friends, wish you all a fantastic day. We are just entering Jerusalem at the moment, and watch your space for some more great content. Thank you very much, everyone.